I'm here with Mark, who is in frame right now, with the owner of the alley, celebrating 50 years this year. So, 50 years of the alley. Did you think you'd make it this far?
You know, I've had people ask me how I did what I did, and I says, you never look back and you never look down. So I never looked up. I just kept doing what I was doing and getting better and better all the time at what I was doing. And so did I ever think that? You know, I tell people the story all the time. I was a 25-year-old kid sitting in my dad's office, and he was a doctor out in Gary, Indiana, and the plaque on the wall said, Dr. Daniel Thomas for 25 years of service. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and I said, Dad, how did you do the same thing for 25 years? And I guess the joke's on me.
Because you've since doubled it.
Because I doubled it. And, you know, and my dad practiced medicine for probably 40 minutes, or 40 years. So, you know, I mean, the other thing my dad said to me, and we didn't have this great father-son relationship, but he said, and his answer to me that day is, well, I love what I do. My dad loved being a doctor. And so, and he says, if you love what you do, you'll never call it a job. And so I've always loved what I did. Even back to the very early days, I've still got calluses on my hand from when I used to cast the jewelry 55 years ago, 54 years ago, before we acquired the alley.
Wow.
And so it is, you know, it was like I was always creating, I was always making things, I was always destroying a piece of jewelry to try to make it into another piece of jewelry. I mean, yeah.
A very DIY punk attitude.
And that's always been who I was.
Now, when you started when you acquired the alley in 1976, right? It would have been?
Yep, that was the year that I acquired the remaining shares and became the sole shareholder.
Okay. So now, in Chicago at the time, what was the goth and punk scene like? I mean, it was kind of still really underground.
It was, punk was there. 76, it was just emerging.
Right, with the Sex
Goth
Pistols.
scene did not really exist in Chicago, in my opinion. I think that it existed in Europe because of the years of old castles and like the pageantry around the royal, you know, the king and the queen of England. So all of that, in many ways, is very Gothic.
Oh yes.
So you know, a Gothic church. You know, how do you translate that into Gothic clothing?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult.
Pretty hard to do. So I would say that and so I started going to London in 1984 to directly import Dr. Martens. So you got to understand, 84, I was born in 54, I was a 30-year-old kid. I had not married Adrian yet. I got on an airplane, I got a passport, I got on an airplane, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I checked into a hotel which was the size of a closet, and I didn't have a clue. You know, there was no internet back then to go search anything. So I opened the drawer next to the bed, and there was a phone book. And I looked up boots. And what I discovered is that Dr. Martin back then only made the soles, and then they sold them to all these boot makers.
Really?
But they all kind of had the same basic styles after a while. So then when I basically got in a black cab, I was talking to the guy at the front desk, and he said, if you want to know about Dr. Martens and you want to know about that whole lifestyle, you should go to Camden Locks.
Oh, I love Camden.
So this is when Camden was good, because they've trashed Camden. You know, they put high rises in the middle, and it's awful. And so I went over to Camden, and it was like a bucket of water in my face, waking me up to a whole new world.
Oh, sure.
And so, you know, I have friends who I just talked to via email the other day who, you know, we were making, you know, gargoyles and statues, and they were doing the same thing in England, and eventually we exchanged models with each other, and I would send them my models, they'd send them their models, and I sold their stuff here in America, they sold my stuff in there. It wasn't economic to ship it, but Camden Locks opened up my eyes. And then after my eyes got this bucket of cold water, then I got into a black cab, and I probably spent $300 or $400 that day.
Wow.
Going from factory to factory. And I began to notice that almost all of them had the same classic boot styles. And so there were two guys who had real inventory on hand, and I gave them $40,000 worth of orders between the two of them to see who was going to deliver fastest, bestest, cheapest.
Nice.
And so that was how I got into Dr. Martens. And then I remember in England starting to see the beginning of Gothic clothing. But again, that was really all about, you know, what was going on with the king and the queen and the Gothic, you know, architecture and everything else.
Sure.
And it was very expensive, very handmade, and that's where it all started for me.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. So you would probably have been one of the early importers of Doc Martens, correct?
Yeah, there were 2 or 3 guys ahead of me, and they were like giving exclusives to certain stores in a community. And back then the 99th floor was open, and he was not a good businessman, but he was a very aggressive business guy. And so what he did is he went to all 3 guys. His dad was a doctor, and he had a ton of money to play with, and he gave them all big orders. So they all refused to sell to me. So they just forced me to go to the source.
Sometimes that's what you got to do, right?
Do what you got to do.
Yep. If one person doesn't give you the answer you want, all right, fine, I'll go find it somewhere else.
I'll shop for the answer.
Yep, that's the best way to do it sometimes. That's business, right?
It is.
One of the only ways to get ahead. But so obviously with 50 years of the Alley and Chicago being the musical city that it is with the acts and everything, how many of those acts, like the members of those groups, have you seen come through here through the years and then go on to do bigger things?
My God, I mean, Ace Frehly lived in our store when he was on tour.
Oh, wow.
I mean, when he passed, he used to wear this one shirt of ours that we never really sold well in the store, but he fell in love with it, and he used to just destroy them. And so, you know, he used to walk in the store, and as we grew, we had 120 employees in 7 stores at Belmont and Clark.
Wow.
We used to have 7 stores at Belmont and Clark. And so he would walk in, and he would bring a roadie with him, and they would go from store to store, and they'd give every single store free comp tickets for every employee in the store.
That's incredible.
He loved the Alley, and he loved what we had created there on that corner with the silver store and, you know, the gargoyles, and, you know, I mean, it was just something. So it was funny that he picked out this one shirt, and as the years went on, we discontinued the shirt because it didn't sell, but we'd keep them printed in the back room, so when he came in, there was always 18 shirts to give Ace. So everybody knew that if Ace came in, that bag of shirts was for Ace, and you just gave it to him. But I mean, Bono's been in my store, Plant and Page were regulars in the store.
Wow.
Rob Zombie made me millions. He came in and bought the Bones jacket from me in the Alley, wore it in and it wasn't something I had created. I was buying it from a leather importer who had knocked off another leather importer, and he wore it in an MTV video.
Yeah, I've seen that jacket in so many videos and concert videos. And
right. So he wore it in an MTV video, and we were one of the biggest, by the way, outside of the motorcycle industry, we could be the biggest leather retailer in America to the fashion and...
How you doing in here?
Good, what's going on? You need me on stage?
No, I'm just checking. I'm making sure everybody's okay.
I'm okay. So we could be the single biggest fashion leather seller in America to the punk and goth and non-traditional motorcycle. By the way, we sell tons of motorcycle jackets to motorcycle guys. In the old days, we don't really see that business anymore. Everything we're selling in here really is selling to our base.
Right.
And the motorcycle business is in terrible shape. Harley, I predict will go bankrupt in a couple of years. Their bikes have become too expensive, and these new kids that are coming up, they'll get on an electric skateboard, but they're afraid of a Harley, they're afraid of a Yamaha, they're afraid of a Suzuki.
Right.
So, as the motorcycle world goes the leather motorcycle world, and they just follow each other. I mean, there are, and I'm famous in Pakistan because everybody there knows, oh, he's got a different market. And I get 3-4 emails a day from different vendors going, "Dear Mr. Mark, we would like to sell you, we make this, we make that, we will make anything you want, we'll beat everybody's prices." I mean, it's a zoo.
That's incredible. Like, to have such a worldwide presence.
Right.
And I don't want to say a small store, but compact?
Well, we are, but
as far as like the
I
retail
guess
space.
Part of it is there's, I don't know, we got maybe 2,500, 3,000 square feet. The big alley had about 6,000 square feet. However, the big alley had 12 or 1,500 feet in backstock.
Wow.
I have over 3,000 square feet of backstock.
Wow. So you could.
So we have inventory in depth that we didn't used to carry. I'd go to lip service and I'd buy once a year or once a season, and I'd spend $10,000 or $15,000. Now I think nothing of going to a clothing vendor who's a regular clothing vendor and spending $10,000, and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I'll spend $10,000 again. And 3 weeks later, I'll spend $10,000 again, and we're watching it, and we mark it down, and everybody always, when I'm running these big sales, they go, "Are you going out of business?" And I go, "No, I make mistakes. I close them out. I make enough money on the good stuff. I close the bad stuff out." And the sale draws customers in, and so we've created a good business model.
You had to have to still be in business so many years later.
Yes.
I mean, and you don't acquire that good business model without taking risks and learning what works and what doesn't.
I've gone broke a couple times in my lifetime and started over, but it's been a hell of a ride.
So what do you see for the future of the alley? What's the future of the alley look like?
I don't know that. I've announced that I'm looking for a successor to me, but it's not a small business acquisition.
No, it's a undertaking for whoever.
This is an undertaking. And so what I've done is I've designed a very limited growth, and I've designed a way to, it's called scaling the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I've designed a way to scale the business. And, we wanted to get through the 50th anniversary because we knew that was a critical landmark for anybody who was looking to buy a business. We wanted to get through it. We made these tarot cards, and we used artwork all the way back to 1976 to artwork in 2025. So it's literally that tarot deck is an archive of alley artwork. But, that's 78 cards. I have 1,000 pieces of alley artwork.
Wow. So you could do all kinds of deck variations.
So we can do all kinds of things. And so we're also doing a 60-page coffee table book. And we're doing it to tell the story, and that's part of preparing the alley for a presentation. But, at the end of the day, I don't want to see what happened to Ben & Jerry happen to the alley, where it gets sold once and the new people kept the traditions. And then the next time it got sold, those people just said, fuck these traditions. We're here to make $1.
Yeah, we're changing the product.
Right.
And that's when businesses tank.
So I'm, you know, and I've got excellent intellectual property attorneys. I mean, we have dozens of trademarks. We have dozens of copyrights. We enforce them all the time.
Oh, you have
So
to.
I'm a fairly skilled business person. So, you know, when people, you know, sometimes people go, you know, you're not punk enough. And I said, not
What does
punk
that
enough?
mean?
And I go, fuck you. You know what I am? I'm Mark enough.
Exactly.
I am Mark. And if you don't like me, or if you don't agree with me, then unfollow me. Or don't come into my fucking store. I don't care.
Yeah, it sounds like a them problem, not a you problem.
It is a them problem, and that's one of the problems with the internet. And that could be one of the reasons we could see the internet take a major dive.
Sure.
People are getting fed up with the trolls and the bots and everything else. And you know, listen, what does 50 years mean? Well, it depends on who you are. I mean, if you're McDonald's, 50 years means it's 50 years of selling food that could kill you.
Right.
In our case, it's 50 years of a culture of acceptance, and you know, why does it say a safe place for weirdos, freaks, and misfits? Because we have accepted all. And I had a guy who attacked a pride post I did the other day, and he said,
I saw that.
If I expressed myself, you know, would you give me a hug because I don't agree with your political slant? And I said, you know what? If you were a gentleman or a gentlewoman and you expressed yourself and you weren't being nasty and rude, I would look at you and I'd say, well, you know what? Give me a hug. Let's agree to disagree and, you know, have a great life.
Yeah. Just be humans about it.
Right, and that's what's missing. Yep, go ahead.
This would be a great spot to end it because Bachelor's Grove just ended, so
Huh?
That's them finishing.
yeah.
I hear
So,
that.
Mark, thanks for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Congratulations on
My
50
pleasure.
years.
You helped me get off my feet for a couple of minutes so we can go out there and tell everybody how much I love them and how much I appreciate them and how they need to be kind to each other. And
We all appreciate what you've cultivated here for so long.
thank you very much.
So, what a great community you've.
You know what? I believed that if my community did better, the alley would do better. If the alley did better, my community did better. So by pushing forward kindness and pushing forward, I mean, by the way, we've made 10,000 maps of all the other stores in Avondale that we've given away in the last year and a half.
Wow.
I did that 20 years ago in Lakeview. and I believe that the more I gave to my community, the more the community as a whole gave back to me.
Oh, of
Even
course.
when people disagreed with me, if they got stronger, it drew more people to the neighborhood, and they came to see me.
Right.
All right?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining me. It is super appreciated, sir.
My pleasure. Never sir, always Mark.